Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, please subscribe. I'd really love that if you're returning. How you doing? Um, I went down a rabbit hole. I did. And it's called Project Artichoke. No, not the artichoke that you eat. It was initially known as Bluebird, Project Bluebird. And it was succeeded by MK Ultra. And it was created to determine whether a person could be voluntarily made to perform an act of attempted assassination. Yes. And when I heard about this, I automatically thought of 47 and the attempts on him. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, is this still going on? Experiments under this project took place at various prisons, mental hospitals in Louisiana, and at Tulane University in New Orleans. There's a memo that was dated January 1952, and it asked, can we get control of an individual to the point where he will do our bidding against his will and even against fundamental laws of nature, such as self-preservation? The answer to this question is an overwhelming yes. Now, I have some footage and I also have some papers, like documents and stuff like that, that I'm going to be sharing with you, and I'm going to read them to you and stuff like that. Okay, so I just want you to be prepared for what's coming. Okay.
The new goal is to cause an individual to become subservient to an imposed control, to the point where he will perform acts against his will and then have no memory of the act. The search for a real-life Manchurian candidate begins. To produce such an assassin, the CIA faces two main challenges: how to induce amnesia and how to program in new behavior. In 1957, Dr. Ewan Cameron, an eminent psychiatrist in Montreal, believes he has the answers.
The agency sought him out because they had noticed his work, in particular with two techniques: intensive electroshock and what he called psychic driving.
Cameron applies his techniques under the guise of normal therapy.
It's hard to say just how awful and horrendous what Cameron proposed and what our government financed was. It was a three-part technique which started with an effort to wipe out past patterns of behavior. And this was accomplished through the use of particularly intensive, repeated, high-level electroshocks until no more convulsions could be elicited from a patient.
Cameron then plays tape-recorded messages through helmets that are locked to his patients' heads. This psychic driving forces them to listen to repetitive statements for weeks on end to program in new behavior.
Now, the final phase was to try to wipe out all recollection of what had happened, and that was accomplished by putting people to sleep for 30, 40 days, accompanied by different kinds of cocktails. Now, that's not any kind of therapy. That's a brainwashing experiment. Since the Greeks first started thinking about medical ethics, the first rule was do no harm. That's a rule Cameron broke.
For 4 years, the CIA fully funds Cameron's work, hoping to use his techniques to create a Manchurian candidate. Psychiatrists throughout the nation, at hospitals, prisons, and some of the top universities, are similarly on the agency's payroll.
Okay, so now we're going to read some of these documents, okay? And it says, contemporary torture's earliest, deepest, most influential roots are found in Artichoke Project. Indeed, it is Project Artichoke that encapsulates the real traveling roadshow of horrors and atrocities, not MK Ultra, which, although responsible for its own acts of mindless cruelty, pales in comparison. The MK Ultra received, continues to receive, the lion's share of the media's attention and public outrage over mind control programs was a deliberately planned outcome on the part of the agency. This outcome was the central objective of a never-before-revealed covert operation launched in 1975 and formally codenamed Dormouse. Dormouse operated out of the CIA Security Research Branch, had its genesis in 1975 Rockefeller Commission report, and in the subsequent congressional hearings into CIA illegal activities chaired by Senator Frank Church and Teddy Kennedy. Following the initial revelation of Frank Olson's alleged self-infliction ended all. By the Rockefeller Commission, a number of high-level meetings occurred between President Gerald Ford's White House and CIA General Counsel Lawrence Houston. Now, Lawrence Houston, who had served the agency at its Doyen General Counsel for over 25 years, secretly huddled on at least 2 occasions in June 1975 with Ford's Chief of Staff, Donald Rumsfeld, and his chief assistant, Richard Cheney. Houston impressed upon both men that any prolonged and intense media scrutiny of Project Artichoke would lead to opening a Pandora's box of legal, institutional, international, public relation problems that could destroy the CIA. Yeah, so hang on. And it goes on to say that without a doubt, as the extant record clearly reveals, the Dormouse operation, as expressed by Houston, was remarkably effective. Information released on the agency's MK Ultra program more than sated the media's curiosity for mind control details. And even a few random Artichoke program citations in a couple released documents failed to draw any concerted examination by anyone in the press. For example, documents revealing that Dr. Frank Olson had been a part of the CIA's ongoing Artichoke conference, were near completely overlooked. Within a few short months, Artichoke was widely believed by the media and the public to be but a small, innocuous project that had been replaced by the MK Ultra behemoth. Still today, numerous publications state that Artichoke was absorbed and replaced by MK Ultra, when actually Artichoke operated independently for nearly 17 years beyond the dawn of MK Ultra. Now, Houston explained that the agency's MK Ultra program was far less problematic for the CIA because it had been a research-based program that initiated 153 contracts to colleges, universities, research institutions nationwide. And these contractors, all stalwart and prestigious institutions like Harvard and Columbia and Tulane universities, could serve as viable buffers to any harsh outside attacks. And Houston stressed that deliberate exposure of the MK Ultra program by essentially offering it to the press would serve to placate the brewing feeding frenzy over so-called mind control projects and would divert any investigative attempts to the multifaceted Artichoke project. Now, Houston additionally explained to Rumsfeld and Cheney that along with the release of the MK Ultra details to the media, the names of a few former CIA employees like Dr. Sidney Gottlieb would also be released to the press. Now, incredibly, when the subject of possible federal prosecutions of the CIA officials for capital crimes and felonies such as murder and trafficking came up in their discussion, Houston informed Rumsfeld and Cheney that there was little cause for concern. Now, the final one says this, okay? Explained in the agency's general counsel since early 1954, following the demise of Army biochemist Frank Olson, a secret agreement between the CIA and the United States Department of Justice had been put in place whereby the violation of criminal statutes by CIA personnel would not result in Department of Justice prosecutions if highly classified and complex covert operations were threatened with exposure. The agreement had been struck between Houston and Deputy Attorney General William P. Rogers in February of 1954, not long after Frank Olson's demise, and still remained solidly in place. Lastly, and worth noting here, is there was a brief adjunct discussion between Houston, Rumsfeld, and Cheney regarding related concerns about records of former NAZI scientists, okay? Because if you remember, if you did any research on the Holocaust and what went on with the what's the word I'm looking for? Experiments, if you will, that went on with some of them, especially twins, okay, with that Dr. Mengele, Mengle, okay, that son of a bitch. Okay, I'm just gonna leave it there. Now, these scientists who had been secretly imported into the United States in the early 50s by the State Department and the Army as part of a Project Paperclip, I will be getting into that later, okay, on another video. These German scientists performed highly classified research at the Army's Fort Detrick and Edgewood Arsenal in Maryland, some of which involved field operations in Europe, okay, so, yeah. So just to know that they brought those torturous bastards from Auschwitz to here to perform these projects on citizens makes you think, okay? All right, now, we already discussed the CIA. Okay, now we're going to get into the U.S. Army, Fort Bragg, MK Ultra, Project Artichoke, Bluebird, all the complicit mind control of American service members now, okay, and Americans and people abroad since the early 1950s. Okay, now what was the U.S. Army's role in all of this? Well, this is sad, okay, but the U.S. Army was a significant collaborator in these programs, primarily because of its interest in interrogation techniques and counterintelligence during the Cold War. Specific Army contributions included joint experiments with the CIA. The Army worked closely with the CIA to develop and test methods of interrogation, or interrogating, I should say, prisoners, POWs, okay, and extracting intelligence from hostile agents. Now, experiments were conducted at Army facilities, including Fort Bragg and Fort Detrick, and overseas locations as well. Now, who was funding the research? Well, the Army helped fund studies on substances like LSD and the potential for interrogation and behavior modification. Now, what was the operational use? Findings from these projects were integrated into what we know as PSYOP, okay, and intelligence training programs. Now, the legacy. Both projects laid the groundwork for the CIA's MK Ultra program in the 1950s, but many of these techniques and the methods explored in these programs have been criticized for ethical violations, including the use of unwitting, test subjects and the infliction of psychological harm. Now, declassified documents have revealed that the U.S. Army personnel were involved in both the research and the implementation of findings from these projects. Now, take a look at this. I got to blow it up, so hang on just a minute. Now, as you can see, well, I don't know if you can see this, but it says to Chief Security Research Staff from Chief Technical Branch, November 16th, 1953, subject Artichoke Conference, October 22nd, 1953. It says on Thursday, October 22nd, 1953, between 2 and 3:25 p.m. I'm guessing an Artichoke conference was held in the SO Conference Room 2065 building. Present at this conference where redaction, you see that? And then it says open the conference by introducing redaction, who is to represent redaction in the future, replacing redaction, who is leaving the United States. Redaction, then pointing out the known facts in the alleged offer of the redaction to sell 10 kilos of LSD. A general discussion followed, which resulted in an agreement of hands that the agency should purchase the if possible and as soon as possible. Purchase price estimated to be $240,000 or less. Yeah. And then it's redacted. It says to handle methods and details of purchase, cover, etc. for the purchase operation and to conduct same. Redacted. To present the purchase plans to the proper agency officials and obtain necessary support, fiscal or otherwise, and the authorization for the operation. And then it says, then it's redacted, and it says offer to assist in any way possible in connection with above was accepted and redacted. Agreed to work out details in the immediate future. Says for matter of record, it should be noted that it was agreed by all hands that the purchase of this material was a risky operation, but since the dangerous potentials of the chemical were known and the redacted. Yeah. So this is what I have found so far, and I hope that this was useful for you. I really love going down these rabbit holes. I really do. But anyway, tell me what you guys think. Did you know about Project Artichoke or Operation Artichoke? I certainly did not, and I like to go down rabbit holes. So I will see you guys in the next one, okay? Let's discuss this. I found it to be pretty interesting. I didn't know that this came after MK Ultra. Yeah, I didn't know. All right, I will see you guys later, okay? You stay safe, you stay positive, you keep prepping, and as always, fear less. Ciao.